Hello and welcome to the I3 lecture series hosted by the Masters in Digital Photography program at the School of Visual Arts. This talk brings to a close our fall lecture series, and we are thrilled to have not one but three speakers with us tonight. We have Sam Barzilay, Laura Roumanos, and Dave Shelley. Together they launched United Photo Industries in 2011. UPI brings the photographic community together by presenting photography, installations, and events in unique locations off the beaten path, where the focus lies in content and is accessible to everyday people from all walks of life. They also present a compelling exhibition program at their gallery, brand new gallery, headquarters in Dumbo, Brooklyn. Currently on view is Nadine Bouton's American Home. In a few short years, UPI has managed to create what is possibly the most exciting and eagerly awaited photo event of the year, the Photoville Festival. So please help me give a warm welcome to Sam, Laura, and Dave.
Thank you. I'm just a common boy from Detroit. Sam's just a common man from Greece, and Laura's an extraordinary person from Australia, who is the glue of United Photo Industries. I think we should just talk about how we got started first, possibly. Here's our mission statement. You're going to talk about that, Laura?
Well, actually, it was just beautifully and eloquently stated. Basically, our mission is to bring, I don't have to repeat this because it's right up there, but at the end of the day, we want to make it incredibly democratic, and also we want to be inclusive, not exclusive. So a lot of the things that we do, a lot of our exhibitions, our projects, our events, is bringing a very diverse artists, organizations, and companies together. I mean, we've only been around for 4 years, but we've actually exhibited over 1,200 artists, like physically. Actually giving 1,200 artists exhibitions, whether it's on photo fences, part of our gallery show, festivals around the world, or Photoville. So that is kind of what we do. So let's talk about us. So basically our motto is work hard and be nice to people, because quite frankly, we're not doing this for the money or the glory. We actually really love what we do and we enjoy what we do, and we have a very diverse background. So I think Sam should talk first about what he does and who he is.
All right. So my name is Sam Barzilay. I moved to New York 8 years ago in what was supposed to be 3 months, but life happened. I grew up in Greece. I came to Boston to study, went back to Greece, realized that was a very bad idea for any number of reasons. Went to London for my master's, where I realized that as much as I loved photography, I was on the wrong side of the camera. I enjoyed taking photos, and I was good at taking photos, but I was exceptional, in my humble opinion, in editing. So I decided to join the dark side and sort of transitioned into the backside. And so I moved to New York via Paris to work at the New York Photo Festival, where I met this gentleman here, where we stayed for 4 years. Anyway, that was 2007 to 2011 when UPI was born. We'll get to that. So, all right.
I have the best background for working photography. I'm a physical education major, so it really cross-references very well. But at one point, I was a sports photographer and a sports reporter, so I think possibly that, with the love of movies, made me excited about photography. And I moved to New York a long time ago, like in '86, and most of my adult life I've made it as an actor, and then segueing into acting and production work. And somehow I thought in 2009 that I could afford 2005, I thought I could afford an apartment in Dumbo, which I could for a couple of years. And then I walked in one day and met Sam, and we worked on this New York Photo Festival for 4 years. And then I think towards the end of it, we were both coming to realize that the way the New York Photo Festival was set up was that we always picked, 4 curators? Mm-hmm. 4 curators, and then that was their vision of who they wanted to show. And then by being on the scene, Sam and I were constantly meeting people whose work we loved, and we wanted to find a way to get their work out there. So we finally said, we got to start figuring out how to do this a little bit on our own.
And that's where I come in. So when I met these guys back in 2008, which was the first photo festival, New York Photo Festival, I was actually the general manager of St. Anne's Warehouse, which is a theatre and music venue out in Dumbo. I'm actually a theatre and music and event producer. I have no background in photography, but I feel, and we all feel, that at the end of the day, photography, theatre, music, visual arts, whatever that is, you're telling a story. And so if you're a producer like myself, it doesn't matter what that is, I'm going to produce your story. So I met these guys while I was at St. Anne's. I was holding Lou Reed's hand while he was curating in the gala in the warehouse while these guys were producing it. And then when I left St. Anne's, I was the senior producer for Creative Time. So I was producing large-scale public art projects. And then I left Creative Time because I had a great opportunity to produce a big psycho opera with the Creators Project and Vice with Karen O and the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, which we toured, which was a big-scale music project, and a behind-the-scenes film with Lance Bangs and Spike Jonze. And then I also produce with Dave as well with the World Science Festival. I've been doing that for the last few years, and produce a lot of other projects. And just so you guys know that the three of us, United Photo Industries and Photoville, do not pay the bills. So we produce and work other jobs. So like I said, World Science Festival, I produced a fashion show with Spike Jonze last year. So that's what pays the bills and the rent. So I can keep doing this and what I love.
I just added up on a piece of paper yesterday. I did 37 different outside paying jobs to stay alive this year.
So there you go. So by doing all of this, we get to do what we love. So basically, back in 2011, when the guys decided they wanted to start United Photo Industries, it was kind of accidental that we kind of fell into a few things. But Sam and Dave had an idea which kind of started with the Dumbo Arts Festival and shipping containers. So maybe Sam can talk a bit about that.
Sure. So every year, the Dumbo Arts Festival was a street art festival open to all disciplines. It was running for about 15 years before its untimely demise a couple of years ago. It's a changing world. But at the time, they had an open call and said, we're accepting submissions. We have a street closure. Tell us what you can do. So I've been kind of itching to use shipping containers because Dumbo is on the old Brooklyn Harbor. I wanted to use shipping containers in a more creative way. I'd seen how in Germany they're building, whole structures, skyscrapers, and thought, well, what if we could build them and put photos in them, and they create little small mobile inexpensive galleries and see if the world will come to it. So piggybacking on the Dumbo Arts Festival and its 200,000 visitors over one weekend, we effectively did an open call, got 3 artists, and also set up a camera obscura as one of the containers, and you can kind of see it. The line to stand 3 minutes in the camera obscura was 45 minutes long, and it ran for 3 days straight. You had to wait 45 minutes, and people patiently and happily waited and got out, and then went back to the line and did it again. So it was great, and that's kind of how we knew we had something, we had an idea. So.
And because of that, Regina Meyer, who is the president of Brooklyn Bridge Park, 5 years ago, Brooklyn Bridge Park was nothing. They were just opening Pier 1, but everything else was just completely not accessible to anybody. So Regina was really, really excited. She loved the camera obscura, that she was one of those people who actually waited for 45 minutes. And she goes, I want you to do this in the park. And at the time, Sam and Dave were still potentially working at the photo festival. But again, this opportunity to do something in Brooklyn Bridge Park in containers was something that we couldn't, give up. And we did it for 3 years until it actually stopped, the Dumbo Arts Festival. So we had a lot of fun with that. And then basically, while that was happening, we got offered a once-in-a-lifetime space. We needed an office space. And at Two Trees, who there are developers and a management company in Dumbo and across New York City, not only offered us an office space, but they offered us an empty gallery, which had been empty for 2 years, and they couldn't fill it. So it was only supposed to be temporary. We're thinking maybe 3 months until we could find an actual office space. So they gave us 111 Front Street, Suite 204 in Dumbo, and I think Dave can talk about our first ever exhibition or exhibitions.
I think the key moment was we were in you can't see it, it's around the back of this wall on the right. That's where our little office started, and Sam and I were in there most of the time. And I turned to Sam and I just said, we're really in trouble now. And he said, why? I go, we have a space that we're going to have to do shows. So what are we going to do? Who are we going to show? So, as great inspirations happen, I was taking a shower and had some time, and I was like, yeah, what about 7 shows in 7 days? Has anybody done that? Let's do that. Let's have an open call throughout the world, pick 7 people and do a show, put a show up, have an opening, take the show down that night, put the putty on the wall, spackle, show up in the morning, sand, paint, put the next show up, have another opening. And we thought, and we had some, who do we have locally? We had like one person locally. Mm-hmm. But we had people from around the world, and then like on Wednesday night we had a young lady from Russia who had sent photos in that we picked of. She was photographing gravestones in Moscow, mm-hmm. and where they always have people's personal photos on there. So we showed that exhibition, and it was like a rainy night, and we're like, no one's coming to see these. No one knows this photographer. No one's going to come see gravestones with these photos at nighttime. So let's just serve vodka like it's a real Chekhov night, and like 60, 70 people just showed up that night. So we had a party. I thought we were onto something.
It was a horrible install the next morning. And one of the great reasons for us to do this was usually when people do openings, it's one night, you get a whole bunch of people, and then for the next month, and to be totally honest, the next month when you do a gallery show, you get a little foot traffic, right? So for 7 days, we had, the 60, 70 people were probably the slower night. We had a few hundred, definitely on our first night. And so for 7 nights, we constantly had people coming through, and it was a lot of different people. We only had one person who came every night. He really enjoyed the drinking, I think. But we had a really great time. This is Bob Miller. He actually just had a newborn like 3 weeks before, and that's the baby. But, it was a really great way for us to do that. And for 3.5 years, we installed shows, and it was basically on a monthly basis. And we've gotten great press, and it was a really great way for us to show work. We're not your traditional gallery. We're accidental gallerists, as we like to say. We're really about putting work out there, and we're really happy. There's been a few sales that have been made, but we've also had a lot of opportunities for our artists come because of that. They have maybe, gotten representation because they were actually in our show, in our gallery, because showing in New York City in a commercial gallery is extremely hard. You have to have a track record. You have to show these gallerists that you know how to sell. And if you haven't had a solo show, how can you show you've got a track record? And Melissa Casciola is actually one of our success stories. So we showed her, she was actually on the fence our first year, but we actually showed her tintype work. And Stephen Kasher from Stephen Kasher Gallery actually took her on, so that was really successful. And then also from our gallery, we actually do a lot of education programs and workshops. So Sam works with Community Justice Center. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So for the last 4 years, we've been collaborating with the Red Hook Community Justice Center, which is a center that runs a youth court and other programs to keep youth out of the court system, or if they're already involved in the court system, keeping them out of trouble, keeping them out of juvenile detention. So finding alternative ways to occupy them and to, let's say, punish them. So one form of punishment is actually a photo class. They're given cameras, they're given assignments, they have to attend twice a week for 3 hours a day for 13 weeks. And upon completion, their record is clean. They are free to go, and they keep the camera. They get a stipend. So this was actually the first. This was it's actually the Kurt Hahn School.
Oh, this is the Kurt Hahn. Right?
So this is a different school from Flatbush. So we had regular visits in the gallery, and so we take them out to shoot.
It's actually been a kind of real kind of love project, passion project for us. Well, a lot of the things we do, passion projects. But working with local high school students, and the thing with the Kurt Hahn, how this went about was Brooklyn Arts Council, their education director at the time, came to us, and the teacher of this particular class, it's ESL, 85% of the students were from Haiti. Many of them did not speak English properly or English at all, and she couldn't get funding for a photo project that she wanted to do. So Catherine from Brooklyn Arts Council came to us. We're on the same floor in Dumbo, and she goes, look, this is a really great teacher. Can you just speak to her and perhaps, see what you can help? Maybe they can come to your gallery for one day so you can show them what you guys do. So we met this teacher, and she kind of, started us on this path because she tried to get a free tour. And I'm going to say this. She tried to get a free tour at the Guggenheim for her class. These kids, their parents don't have any money, and the Guggenheim wouldn't waive the $8 per student thing. And so we were really angry, and we're like, all right, let's, you know what? We want to do something with you guys. So basically, these kids started coming to our gallery every week. And like Sam said, we started doing workshops with them. And we actually did an exhibition for a week. And basically, the opening night, which was really great, their friends and family came. Each student had to basically kind of read out something they wrote about the other. So this was something that we did, and it kind of spearheaded our education programs at Photoville and all the other things we do in the gallery.
It was like a prom night.
It was definitely like prom night. Dave learnt a lot about 15-year-old girls.
There were kids changing clothes everywhere, like they were going to prom. Like, the guys had on like so much spraying Axe body spray. They were going out. But what was so beautiful is that she had them stand up. They had to get up and present their work, and they were dressed up. So it gave it a weight that a lot of times that we don't do in America that's very casual. So I think that they learned something from it. It made me feel fantastic, so I learned something from it. And it was a really great day.
It was a lot of fun.
Sorry, before you move forward, I was going to mention, this is actually just a few months after the earthquake in Haiti, so these were students that had to leave Haiti with or without their parents and move to Flatbush, and as Laura said, not speaking any English. So it was quite an educational moment for all of us.
And then we also sometimes had Italian rockabilly bands play, just because. So sometimes we just had like little get-togethers and activations in the gallery, which was fun. And this was also something, we also like to experiment. So this is actually an artist, Martin Smith from Australia, who still does, carve out photographs and then write stories with his sculptures. So we like to kind of experiment in our gallery, which is fun. And then in July of last year, we were told by our landlord that all the galleries on our floor had to leave. So for 6 months, we were in limbo. We did not know where we were going, if we could go anywhere, because we were getting heavily subsidized rent from Two Trees, who were amazing. And then in December, it was kind of like our Christmas present. I don't know if any of you guys know the old Galapagos space in Dumbo. Galapagos left in December, and Two Trees decided that they were going to not rent it out to a commercial, company. They were going to renovate it and split it up into 4 galleries. So we were one of them. So it was us, Klumchin Gallery, which is an amazing photography gallery, Masters Project, and Minor Space. So we're on 16 Main Street, and this is kind of the start. They blew out windows. It's kind of what it looked like. And here is Gilbert. And this is kind of what it was look like before we moved in. And we decided to build a mezzanine. And this was our first show back in September, a week before we opened Photoville this year, we opened a show, Anderson Zacker's block party, which we had a block party, and it was awesome. And we're right at the entrance of Brooklyn Bridge Park. You can see the Manhattan Bridge, and it kind of elevates and puts us to the next level. We now have a storefront gallery. Already we have people come, like we have record numbers of people come every day. The weekends are crazy. It's fun. We get to speak to a lot of people and potentially selling a lot more work.
And it's very interesting that the gallery is exactly where we started the photo pods.
Exactly.
That's right. So if you remember the original photos, it's literally just outside this window is where our first containers were.
And we built a moving wall and a mezzanine, and we kind of built some walls around it. So it's a flexible space, and we can do a lot more, which we're pretty happy about. And this is the show we have right now, Nadine Borton's. Oh, that's a terrible photo. Sorry. It looks different. But American Home, and it's a great show, and it's up to the end of January, so you guys should come check it out. So we're gonna fast forward a little bit to the fence. So back with the photo pods, when we started talking about doing Photoville, didn't have a name. We also had the idea of the photo fence. So walking through Brooklyn Bridge Park, there's all these construction fences. And so, Sam, do you want to quickly talk about that?
Right. So back in 2011, 2012, the park had built Pier 1. It was beautiful. It was green, rolling grass. They were working on building Pier 6 at the other end of the park near Atlantic Avenue, again. But there was nothing in the middle. It was a lovely greenway that could take you from Dumbo to Atlantic Avenue without getting hit by a car, without, walking by the water, but there was absolutely nothing. So as we were walking, it was like realizing once people get in for about 1.5 miles, they can't get out. It's a captive audience. So we sent, we had already been working with the park trying to build Photoville. So we sent them this. You can see how well done it is. This was our first proposal saying,
This was like a 20-minute thing.
Yes. So this was our sort of tongue-in-cheek proposal of how we could take their fences and make them fun. So rather than people being bored with nothing to see, just ugly construction fences, we could bring photos to your fences. You can see Gilbert on the bottom right. So fast forward to the fact that they actually said yes. It's now been 4 years. The fence has actually expanded beyond just Brooklyn Bridge Park, where it spans 1,200 feet in length. It also runs for about 4 months every summer. It also is up in Boston with the Flash Forward Festival. It's up in Atlanta with Atlanta Celebration Photography Festival. It's up in Houston in partnership with the Houston Center of Photography, and we'll be expanding it in 1 or 2 extra cities next year. So it's sort of taken on a life of its own. This went up about a week ago in Midtown of Houston.
And what's kind of nice, culturally, every city is so different, of course. But, in Brooklyn, when you go through the park, it's like you get some people who go, wow, did the park pay for this? Are they paying for this art? And then when you go to Boston, we have guys driving by when you're in the middle of hanging it and it's half up and the guy's like a worker guy's on the way, he's a plumber. He rolls down the window of the van and he goes, hey, yo. Yes, sir, what's up? He goes, it's crooked, Well, it'll be straight, we get that. And now in Atlanta, which was a huge thing for this year in our second year, we have it down on the ground. We have to say, people, could you please step back? We're trying to put it up. They're like, thank you for putting those. We've been waiting another year to see all the new photos. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, so I want to kind of quickly rewind. So this is a competition, and we kind of have this theory that you enter once and you have the opportunity to have your work seen in these cities by all these people. And one of the reasons why these parks don't pay for it, it is extremely hard to get, the kind of work that we put on the fences out in public. We have to get it vetted. We've never had one of any of these parks say no to the work. We had Afghani burn victims. We had some political stuff. We've had a lot of debate actually on one of our tours this year on work which was taken in Gaza. But you guys have no idea the amount of work we have to do behind the scenes to get this work cleared. But also there's a lot of places, because believe me, every day we get people emailing going, why can't you come out to LA, or why can't you do it in this city? It's because a lot of public spaces won't allow the work that we want to put up here. So the fact that Brooklyn Bridge Park, the fact that the, Rose F. Kennedy Greenway, the Beltline, the Main Street folks in Houston actually have the guts to show the work and not censor any of it is really amazing. And so in theory, we could have 20 cities next year, but it all comes with a price, and we don't want to actually, we don't want to edit. We don't want to compromise the work that actually is chosen. We had over 40 jury members this year. So what's really great is that a lot of our jury members, and it's very democratic. It's literally a voting system. We have no say, which is sometimes very frustrating because we see a lot of work we love that don't make the cut. But it literally is the top 40 series that get the most votes get on the fence. That's it. That's pure and simple. And we get a lot of the jury members who email us who go, my favorite series didn't get in, but I'm going to use them. I'm going to use them for an exhibition. I'm going to put them online. So that's really quite heartening for us. But also what's really quite interesting is that we get a lot of photographers who are very up in their game, very high profile, who don't make it, who are not very happy about it. But again, like I said, it's democratic. It's whoever gets the most votes.
Talk about how many people see it over the course of a year.
And yes, and Brooklyn Bridge Park, over 1.5 million people see the fence over 4 months of the summer. So that's pretty unbelievable. And a lot of the photographers, that's just for one city. And a lot of photographers get work. We've gotten some really great press because of it. And we want to keep doing. And basically the submission fees goes to pay for it because it's expensive. It's very expensive to make. And then we have the Jury's Choice Awards. And this year, because it was a tie, we decided to give both of them exhibitions at Photoville. So Lynn Johnson
on the left. And then Eduardo, is it?
Plein air?
No, on Plein Air, which is part of Riverboom. I'm blanking. It's
I blank. I just gave birth 7 weeks ago, so I have no memory. And then this is some installation shots. This was from 2 years ago. We were installing in the park at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and the police came, no one questioned us. We were just installing stuff. It was quite fun. And this is Atlanta, Dave with his, his knee pads.
You have to dress appropriately for the event. Right?
And this is Boston. And everyone, that's Marianne Camilleri, who's the director of Flash Forward Festival. Everyone gets their hands dirty. It's fun. And then because of the fence and the first fence and Photoville, we got a phone call from the Department of Transport. And there was a old fence around the Manhattan Bridge, Anchorage and Dumbo, which really needed some kind of TLC. And literally this was the day after Photoville finished, and we were exhausted. We'll talk about how exhausting our first year was. And they said, we'd love to do it, and we'd love to do it, put it up in 2 weeks. So Sam had 48 hours to contact photographers and curate it, design it, and we had to wear hard hats. There you see Gilbert. And basically, that's how Superheroes was born, and Sam can talk very briefly about this.
So very, very briefly, this was kind of a gift from the gods. I had sort of curated this in my head over the course of a year, and it was sort of sitting in my drawer, hoping that one day someone would come and say, "Hey, would you like to do a show of 6 photographers on using superhero themes to talk about social issues?" And obviously, this came, and it was it was perfect. It was literally 48 hours of contacting everyone, getting the files, designing it, printing it, and running out the door with it.
And even, so it was where the Anchorage is, it's where all the workers who work on the Manhattan Bridge. And they loved the fence so much that they decided, and it actually took a lot of thought, they decided to make their own big screen print, and they printed it on vinyl of Super Freak from Dominican Republic. So this is one of the workers who's from the Dominican Republic. And Dulce Pinzon, a Mexican photographer, had a series called Superheroes of Mexican immigrants who dressed up as superheroes. So they were like, Spider-Man window washing. You had the Hulk. You had a lawyer, work construction. So the actual workers decided to do their own superhero. And we kind of thought that was fun. And first of all, this is kind of at the start, so we thought, oh, Dulce would be really offended. And also some of this work was tagged and we had to replace it. And Dulce's attitude and quite a lot of the other photographers were like, this is the public. This is now, when you put work out in the public, it's now theirs. And so that was actually kind of really interesting. So this was up for 2 years, and it actually even survived Hurricane Sandy, or Superstorm Sandy. So, and then we worked with the Dumbo Business Improvement District and the Parks Department on geolocations Dumbo. So working with Nate Larson and Marnie Schindelman, they have a really great project called Geolocation using Twitter and the GPS on the I'm terrible at this. But geotag information. And so we asked them if they could come out to Dumbo for a week. We paid them, we commissioned them to do a special Dumbo one on Washington Street. So they went around, we've left the island, which we love. They got into Etsy, Brooklyn Roasting Company. It was a lot of fun. And this was also up for 2.5 years. And we're trying to think of what the next project is for this space. And then we also worked on another project, which is still up now nearly 3 years, with the Department of Transport called the New York Outer Borough Stories, where we actually asked 4 curators in the outer boroughs, not Manhattan, to curate a project each in Manhattan in near Wall Street. And Irena. So Sam curated Brooklyn. So Irena's work in Prospect Park. Paul Moakley, who runs Alice Austin House and who's also a photo editor at Time Magazine, and he did Staten Island, and we did Queens and the Bronx. So it was actually really great work, and it's still up. And here are the guys from the DOT who installed it and loved it. So we just took a photo of these guys, and that's Gilbert with the fireman. And then personal mythologies, so Sam can talk about this.
Right. So once superheroes came down, we had noticed that a lot of our audience weren't just the sort of 20-something, 30-something people working in Dumbo. It was also a lot of young kids and families that would come on the weekend and would see it. And it occurred to us that we wanted to create something that, again, would speak to the adults but also be entertaining to the kids, so it would speak on to different levels. And that's how personal mythologists came about. And actually, one of the faculty of the master's program at SVA is included here. That's Victor Cohen's work. Is he? Yeah. Well,
he came in.
We outed him. Oh, yes. A funny note about that. Victor's actually been instrumental in just about everything we've done. Every logo you've seen. In fact, the very name of Photoville have all come from Victor. He has been sort of the creative brain behind the brains. So.
Ivan Ford. We love this. And one of the instrumental partnerships that we have is with the East River Ferry. So here's another project that we've been doing. Also, we're working more and more with these city agencies to pay the photographers. So with the DOT, with New York Outer Borough Stories, they pay the photographers and the curators, not a lot of money, but it's something. So we're kind of getting these really wonderful institutions and agencies to start paying. And the East River Ferry, it kind of started with these guys. They came on as our sponsor for Photoville in the first year, and we kind of made a joke with them while drinking that we want to do Photoville on a boat, on a barge. And they said, well, look, we don't have a barge, but we do have ferries. And so for the last 3 years, we've been producing exhibitions with a lot of local and also international photographers on their boats. And they have just over 10,000 people who ride their boats every day in New York City. So we're quite happy, and it's year round. So we have 3 boats, and every month we change with different photographers. So this is Stephen Mallon's work, and that was our first year, so it was drawn to water. Then our second year, which was in 2014, we decided to do Wanderlust, so we decided to take it out of the water. And this is Diggy Wallace and Chris Burkhardt, Pete Strootman. And this year we decided to do New York stories, so New York photographers. So this is Anderson Zacker's work, Block Party. And then another partnership that we have is with the Tokyo International Photography Festival. So we have a wonderful partnership with the folks over in Tokyo who run the Tokyo Institute of Photography, and they wanted to create a festival. And unlike us who create a festival in 3 months, they decide to do it in 3 years. So we started with a competition in our first year, then second year a competition and portfolio reviews in Tokyo and a conference. And this year was the festival, plus the conference, plus the competition. And the actual work that kind of made it was 8 photographers, had a show here in New York in our gallery, but also in Berlin, in Guatemala. We're taking it to Sydney and Tokyo. So we're kind of, again, you kind of submit your work once and it can have all this exposure and exhibition opportunities. And this is in Berlin in a vodka factory. There's a lot of people. It's crazy. And this is in Tokyo. And also we do a lot of work and we show a lot of work in international festivals. So this was in Shanghai. We took 3 photographers, Josh Lair, Rahi Rezvani, and Russell Fredericks, who's actually based in Bed-Stuy. And we work with Russell a lot. So he came to China with us. There's Russell. And we also, there's Russell again in Sydney. So the Reportage Photo Festival, Stephen Dupont, a photojournalist, has this amazing festival in Sydney. So he invited us to do 3 exhibitions from Photoville in Hyde Park in Sydney, which is kind of the central park of Sydney. And that was up for over a month. And so we had Russell's work, we had Bruce Gilden's work, which was produced by the Magnum Foundation, and also Cruel and Unusual, curated by Pete Brook, produced by the Noorderlicht Festival in the Netherlands. And we also have a partnership with the Leiden Photo Festival. And so this was our second year, and basically we send them over 20 emerging North American photographers, and they basically produce the work and show the work in shipping containers as part of their festival in the Netherlands. So last year we did the work, and this year. And here's some work. This is Tiffany Smith's. And also this year we took 8 exhibitions to Hamburg as part of the triennial there. There is, I'm sorry, I've got baby brain.
Bartlett.
Chris Bartlett.
Yes.
We lived with him. Chris Bartlett's work, which is, I'm going to let Sam discuss the next. I'm going to keep pushing.
So this is here. This is the 8 shows that we showed in Hamburg were actually shows we had shown in Photoville prior. Chris Bartlett's particular show is called Iraqi Detainees. It was about men and women that were falsely accused, arrested, and tortured in Abu Ghraib, and then ultimately, obviously, exonerated, released. He tracked them down and photographed them and interviewed them. So and the man in the middle is actually the man that was under the hood in the famous, or infamous rather, photo of the man with the electrodes. And he now is living in Germany. He's been relocated, and he came, and it was a very emotional moment. He came with a translator, and he spoke. And, he saw the work and spoke with Chris, because he hadn't seen him since those years in Iraq. And this is Chris and a gentleman from Iraq and a few other people just discussing sort of what it's like to be in Germany now. And in the background, you can see the exhibitions.
I think it was one of the most emotionally charged days of my life to meet this gentleman. To feel the weight of the American country on my shoulders as the American there with Chris, to communicate with him and feel that it was very important for me, which I'm sure many people have done for him, but to apologize to what happened to him because of our country's policies, and trying to get that described through a translator, and him just hugging me and kissing me and basically telling me it's okay. That was, that's one of the, it's one of the great things about, I think, what makes us do what we do,
And it was a wonderful festival. We were there for the week. It was a 2-week festival in Hamburg, and it was great to be able to have the work, more of an international audience, see the work. And there is Dave. Dave usually drives the forklift in New York, so
German toy.
This is your German toy. We helped the organisers a lot with the exhibitions, and we also helped a lot of the other international festivals who were exhibiting there, and a lot of the schools. And we also collaborate a lot. So we worked with Nina Berman at Photoville a few years ago, and Nina Berman is an amazing photojournalist, is part of Noor, and they had a project that they were working in the Zatari camp, which is the Syrian refugee camp in Jordan, and they wanted to be able to show the work in the camp, and they just needed a bit of help. So Sam went over there, and for 4 days wheat pasted the work on the actual wall of the refugee camp. And basically, here are all the prints. Sam kind of taught these guys how to wheat paste, and they just did it for 4 days. Yep. And then we're invited to actually show the work at the United Nations. So this was earlier this year in January. And it was a little tricky because you can't actually stick anything on the walls, so we had to kind of come up with some temporary solutions. And there's Nina there, and it was a nice reception. And then another project that we do, and we partner with the folks at the Brooklyn Half Marathon, the New York Roadrunners, and this was New York Stories. So we just worked with several, exploring Brooklyn, several Brooklyn photographers, and this was up for a year. And then we also did a project with Airbnb, and we commissioned a photographer to actually take all this work of creative Brooklynites. It's part of the Brooklyn Half Marathon this year. So again, we're kind of trying to do a lot more with different companies and commercial entities to be able to bring more opportunities to photographers, which leads us to Photoville. So we're thinking we might just play the trailer, and then we can briefly talk. Oh yes, you can talk about this.
So we're going to show you a short trailer about Photoville, but I just wanted to point out this was when we were, before we had a name, but when we knew what we wanted out of it. We wanted something that was very human, very approachable, not sort of the opposite of what a gallery usually feels like, where you feel a little scared, you feel like you're being punished and shouldn't speak. So we wanted something very, almost not retro, but just friendly. And, and there's that idealized, concept of what the 50s felt like, what the 60s felt like, in America, and sort of working with Victor, he came up with this. We told him his ideas we had in our minds, and he came up with this, which was one of the first sort of images defined our vision. So, and it's evolved quite a bit since.
And so before we show the trailer to show, kind of fast track everything, the evolution, this is kind of the evolution of the images that Victor has kind of given us, which has been amazing. This is our favorite. This is this year's. But basically, rewind back to the photo pods in 2011. So originally, Brooklyn Bridge Park decided that they were going to give us 20,000 square feet near Pier 1. And so we're thinking 12 shipping containers and maybe a few talks and a nighttime projection. And then in February, they said, that's going to be developed now. We have 80,000 square feet on the uplands of Pier 3, which, according to everyone, was in the middle of nowhere. Do you guys want it? And we're like, sure. So we had 3-4 months to basically fundraise, and it went curate, design, do everything. And it went from 10 to 12 to 45 shipping containers, a dog run, nighttime projections every night, a beer garden, a talks area, workshops area. We were kind of nuts. So I'm going to show you the trailer, but that's kind of the history of that. So one moment.
Does someone really want to walk into sort of a slightly rusty, dirty shipping container and look at photography that's unframed, that's sitting up with magnets? And we thought, well, we would. Maybe we know friends would, but really? You're going to walk to the park with your kids, you're going to go jogging, and all of a sudden you go, what the hell is that? And you're going to walk in because it's free and it's there, and suddenly you're going to get locked in. You're going to realize, without wanting to, that this is great photography. Photography today has really become a universal visual language. In large effect because of Instagram and the internet, everyone, quote unquote, speaks photography. but that doesn't mean they're eloquent about it. And I feel we are in a unique position to help people in their discovery of what photography really does. And it's not about a profession. It's not about I'm going to be better and make a living out of it. It's I'm going to be better and I'm going to make better photos and I'm going to appreciate better photos and demand better photos of people.
We've been working on increasing the number of exhibitions by concentrating more the last couple of years on how much public art we can do on the outside of the containers. And the amount of people that can come see a show. I mean, we're getting close to between 70, 75, 80,000 people coming in 2 weekends to see your work. It's incredible.
We want people to go and say, oh my God, there's so much to see and so much worth seeing. I have to make it a day of it. I have to come for the weekend and see friends and hang out and talk about the work and create new relationships. And that's also why we had a beer garden. We wanted a place, almost like the town square, somewhere where people would go and stop and not see art and go, wow, what did I just see? And then turn to the person in front of them who maybe they've never met and go, what did you just see?
At the end of the day, this is not just about photography, it's about storytelling. And storytelling is incredibly universal. So we have over 60 exhibitions, and so we always look at it, we have over 60 stories from all over the world, from different perspectives. A lot of it is very socially conscious work. Sometimes we have some really beautiful bodies of work that people just like to look at because they're actually just beautiful and powerful, but it's about stories. And that, I think, is what really links everybody together. That's why we're successful.
We are sitting on a growing audience. We're starting to enter sort of public consciousness. We're not just the photo industry anymore. There's the photo professionals, and the biggest challenge is sustainability. It's about changing and cultivating the user experience where they feel that there's more to discover, there's more to interact with, and how do you make it happen year after year after year without losing its edge, without losing what makes it special, what makes it fresh every year. And that's twofold. One is maintaining the quality of the programming. And that in itself is, a huge endeavor. And on top of that, you have to make sure that it remains free, because once you start putting a price tag to it, you start shedding all the people that matter, all the people that are not already converted to your cause, that are not already believing in the power of photography and thinking, yes, we must support this. You need all those people that don't yet realize how important it is to support it.
So that was a good little 3-minute thing that actually sums it up, because we have like 10 minutes left. So we're going to talk about this year, because this was our 4th year. But for the last few years, we went from Peer 1, Peer 3 to Peer 5. Our first year, this is Gilbert in our beautiful handmade model. As you can see, we've now graduated to Legos. This is how we figure out Photoville, is with Lego models of our 20-foot and 40-foot shipping containers. But this was our first year. So we did it in June. It took 3.5, 4 months. We did a little Kickstarter campaign. A lot of people were like, oh, we had to raise $30,000 via Kickstarter. So a lot of people thought that's how much it cost. It actually cost roughly $250,000.
Our first year, yeah.
Our first year. We don't get paid, so that doesn't include our salaries. We had the smallest team, and I can't even begin to tell you how small that was. And then we had an army full of volunteers. And so to keep it free, obviously, if we were to charge an admission price, we wouldn't have got the people that we had that first year. We had over 40,000 people. If we charge admission, we probably would have got maybe 10,000, if that. So we were able to get a really large amount of people to come see that work. And at the beginning, before Victor had, genius, came up with Photoville, we were just calling them photopods. We were calling a shipping container village. We met with Photo District News, PDN, who came on board straight away before we had a name, who said that we can use them to try and get more partnerships. Magnum Foundation, the New York Times, Media Storm, they were kind of instrumental in coming on board to really support us to get more people involved. And also SVA, ICP, who else?
Parsons.
We had also the school support, which was great. It's our beer garden. It's an aerial shot. Also, our first year, we were crazy. We met this wonderful artist called Andre Feliciano, who's from Brazil. Sam met him at the Houston Photo Festival. By the way, Sam meets a lot of photographers at portfolio reviews, and we show a lot of them. So Andre was one of them. And so we commissioned him to actually create this greenhouse. So we paid for it all. And it was really kind of a highlight of the first Photoville. So every year we try and, do one up, which this year I think we definitely exceeded. This was Sim Chi Yin's Rat Tribe. So Magnum Foundation really set the bar high. So in the first year, a lot of organizations and artists just had photos on the wall. Magnum Foundation decided to create two kind of really amazing and immersive exhibitions. One was Chi Yin's Rat Tribe. So they created kind of the basement home that these people lived in. And they also do Bruce Gilden's Foreclosures in America, which you couldn't even go inside. I don't have an image. Our second year, we actually teamed up with NBC and Ann Curry. And actually, so these were augmented reality app, which basically, there's a photo of Anne. We had 6 of Anne's photos. And with this app, you actually then can see the photo turns into the assignment that she actually reported on. So it was a pretty cool thing. And we thought it was a joke, and we kept saying to her, they're just crappy containers. And she didn't care. She wanted to be, we think she didn't care where she was going to be. They were actually the best people to work with. Mm-hmm. And we were expecting a lot worse. Again, some shots there. And so this leads us to this year. So for the last 4 years, we've been, every year, we don't know where we're going to go. We think it's our last year in Brooklyn Bridge Park because it's a developing park. We're fingers crossed we'll know very shortly where we're going to be for that next year. But the park have been really good to us. They basically give us the keys, and as long as we don't screw up, they're happy. And they let us, honestly, we also know, when you're working with a public entity like Brooklyn Bridge Park or Riverview Central Park, you just have to respect them. And we know that they don't want nudity outside, so we're not going to show it. We're not going to show bloodshed outside. Inside the containers, anything goes. So we're really smart with the kind of work that we show. And then here's some other images. We did some 3D skateboarding. We worked with Everyday Climate Change. We also this year worked with the amazing Jeanette Beckman, and she curated our opening night slideshow, which was a music slideshow. And then we decided to, she does this thing called the mashup, where she takes some of her iconic images and she works with celebrated street artists to mash them up. So Say Adams, who is kind of a legend in the street art world, and Queen Andrea, who's unbelievable, kind of side by side worked on their mashups of Chuck D and LL Cool J. So that was something that we did leading up to Photoville. And Sam can talk about Matt Black.
Sure. So I don't know how many of you know Matt Black's Geography of Poverty project. It's been going for a few years, where he drove around the country documenting extreme poverty to show that it's actually not a unique situation. It crosses the entire. So he was able to trace a almost unbroken line from coast to coast and back again of cities where more than 30% of the people were living under the federal poverty line, which is beyond depressing. So I've been fascinated with this work for a while. So Laura had this idea of, I wanted to show it, and we spoke with Matt, said, well, we'll print these images from this and along with some information about each city or each town, and we'll disperse them on Photoville so we'll kind of walk around and discover them. And Laura said, well, what if we created a map so people could see where each image was and kind of understand the sort of the problem. So that...
The art.
Sorry.
Just to quickly rewind, this was we were always going to do the disbursement of the photos throughout Photoville. That was like months in the making. The idea of the map came because we had this uneven space in Photoville, and we're like, what are we going to do with it? So 2 weeks before Photoville, I woke up and said to Sam, can you call Matt? Can you email him? Like, what if we do a map? Do you think he'd want to do it? So he was really into it, but it was basically 2 weeks before we opened. And then this became Sam's obsession on how we were going to, stick it on the ground, how it was going to stick. He got high off fumes, design. I mean, it was his obsession.
So effectively, this is a 60-foot long by 25 feet wide print that we printed in pieces and then attempted to wheat paste onto the ground, only to discover that it was so hot, the slab was so hot that the glue was drying before we could stick it down. We went through every iteration of cement, sealers, gaff tape. In the end, and this is still the aerial shot to give you a sense of scale, in the end, we ended up using floor polyurethane, so like floor sealant. There are probably about 25 layers of coats of floor sealant, and that we would just take turns rolling onto it, walking through the map and just kind of rolling on.
The trucks were driving over at the end.
By the end of it, when we were loading out, and there were semis driving over the map, loaded with containers on the back of them, and it was untouched. It was still...
And this year we also had a great collaboration with National Geographic. So they decided to do exhibitions on the outside. So Peter Mueller, Ebola's work, Robert Clark's, Stephanie Sinclair, and Lynn Johnson's, which we don't have an image, but it was kind of the Lynn Johnson show at Photoville, and Stephanie Sinclair, because they had exhibitions all over the place. But here's some fun shots. Time Magazine, Olivier Laurent curated Devin Allen's work from Baltimore on the outside. This year was a new initiative called Photo Cubes. So, Emerger Cubes. Thank you, Sam. And for us, again, it was how do we do more public art outside? How do we not spend a lot of money because we don't have any? And we decided to ask Jerry Vizzuso, Jamel Shabazz, Elizabeth Avedon, and Stella Kramer to nominate a few emerging photographers each. So photographers that they like, they believe in, some of them still at school, some of them just graduated. And basically we then offered, we looked at the kind of the short list and then chose 10 photographers and basically said to them, you have a cube, it's 4 feet by 4 feet, you can't branch out, you can go up, you can do whatever you want, but this is what it is. And it was just basically made out of pallets. And it was great. It was scattered around. A lot of this work, actually, we probably got more praise for this work than every other work, all the photo cubes. So it was really wonderful. And we're going to do it again next year, and we're going to do a lot more. It was definitely new for us. Toxic Sites, Open Society Foundations, another great partner. We worked with Stephanie Sinclair's Too Young to Wed. And so here is just some images of some of the exhibitions that we did. We ask all of our partners to be creative. For them, it's just a 20-foot or a 40-foot container. As long as you don't ruin the container, because we rent them, you can pretty much do whatever you want to do. So people are really quite creative. That's Glenna Gordon's work, and she was supported by the Open Society Foundations. This was Jeanette Beckman's exhibition. So she also decided that, it's not enough just to do one night of slideshows. So we basically printed over 500 photographs and just pasted them in a container. And these are with iconic photographs of the last 40 years from some of the best music photographers. So it was a lot of fun. This was Getty. Getty is another really great collaborator. And, when we work with a lot of these big companies, we're very hesitant, not in a bad way. We just think, we're these like scrappy containers, and we keep telling them, this is what it is. It's dirty, it can be hot, it can rain. We can't control when it's outside. And Getty is honestly one of our best partnerships, where they're all wonderful. They love it, they embrace it, and we all have a really good time. So this is their legacy. Debbie Cornwall's work from Guantanamo Bay. Instagram, another big partner of ours. They kind of came on board 2 years ago, and just really loved the fact that we were reaching to a really large audience, but also we were working with so many different institutions and schools and artists and curators, and they wanted to be part of it because Instagram is about community. And so they've been a really great supporter of ours. And also what's really wonderful, and one of the big things that we like to do, is when we work with the Instagrams, the Gettys, the New York Times, the Time Magazine, they're bringing people, they're bringing audiences in. And so you've got audiences who wouldn't necessarily come to something like this or wouldn't know of many of the photographers and organizations that we do feature at Photoville. So when they show up, people are like, oh, this is great. Here's the Instagram double stack. Oh, but look at this young photographer who I've never heard of. I love this work. So it's critical mass, and that's one of the large reasons why we do Photoville. It's the Magnum Foundation. This is my favorite exhibition. Live, Love and Limbo. We also worked with the Ethiopian Photo Festival, Addis Photo Fest, this year, and we're starting an exchange with them. So they sent us 10 photographers, and this was very much kind of a last minute. The work wouldn't stick on the containers, so this was a last minute thing of let's just put up plywood. For us, you know, these aren't white walls. This is not a gallery. Again, they're containers, and for us it's about the images and it's about the work. And actually this was that was the container that got a lot of interest and a lot of buyers. So you never know. This is Brenda and Keneally's work. This was the first exhibition that we actually booked for this year, Upstate Girls. And this was a really amazing and chaotic exhibition. And this is some more work. She had a timeline, hundreds of photographs. Visco, great partner. Ruddy Roy, we actually produced this project with Ruddy. So every year we're able to partner with a few photographers that we help fundraise for. This was one of the exhibitions that we produced and fundraised, and we found a sponsor for him, and it was fantastic. And this was the work that he had shot in Ferguson, in Staten Island, in North Carolina, and not Baltimore. But this is pretty powerful stuff. Lynn Johnson's work, Blast Force Survivors. There's Ruddy. Eugene Richards, another amazing exhibition that we were able to produce, work that hadn't been shown in New York City before, and we thought it needed to be seen. It needed to be seen by a large audience. And so we loved working with Gene. NYC Salt, which is a young not-for-profit, Alicia Henson, who's the lady in the middle there, who basically works with these kids and gives them so many amazing opportunities. It's not just about the photography, it's about helping them get into college, helping them prep for their cities. Like, it's a really unbelievable organization. So basically, this is Photoville for us. It's working with unbelievable organizations, great artists. We showed over 500 photographers this year for Photoville. And our nighttime events, we worked with Getty. So this was Down and Dirty of Jeanette's. And then we also worked with Getty. And so they talked about, and this was on September 11, so they showed their legacy work. And we also worked with the New York Times. The Lens blog curated. We also worked with POV, so the PBS documentary series. So we also showed some work from there, and we also worked with National Geographic, and that was a fun evening with some of their photographers. So our beer garden is really instrumental for Photoville. It's a place for people to drink and eat. We work with Smorgasburg, the Brooklyn Flea folks, but it's really about people coming together. And we work with Photo Shelter, so that's David Burnett. And then we had some really amazing panels, which were pretty much full the entire 2 weekends. So standing room only. Matt Black's there with Brenda and Eugene. Facing Change, which was a great... Oh, another one, David, yeah. We also worked with National Geographic Your Shot to do middle school and high school kind of neighborhood tours with Katie Olinsky. And so this was really fun. And we worked with the Bronx Documentary Center kids who came for that. We worked with Risk. We did a workshop. We also did tintypes. And Basically, all of our workshops, talks, everything was free. And we also did our walking tours. It's Julie Graham, James Welford, and also Bill Hunt. And New York Media Center. So for us, we're also working with people who aren't necessarily photographers, like with POV, but photographers more and more are doing multimedia, and we're it's all about collaboration. So we did some really great workshops: sports photography, product photography, dog and kids workshop. And we also do our free education day. So this is a day where basically everyone volunteers their time, curators, us, artists, to give these really amazing. We had nearly 400 kids this year who came out to Brooklyn Bridge Park for the day, and we did tours throughout. So that's Stephanie Sinclair, that's Dave. And we also had some actual basically youth photography panels. And so we had these student photographers talking to the students about their work. So I think we probably should start with the Q&A maybe. Oh, this was also Gilbert.
Gilbert with the Secret Service?
That's Gilbert with the Secret Service guarding the Estonian president who showed up last year. And then basically what we want to talk about is that when you do public art and outdoor events, you can't control the weather. So sometimes it's just, this was our misting tent from our first year because it was 100 degrees. So we decided to do an impromptu misting tent. And that was wonderful. And this is Sam on our Dumbo Arts Festival. It was flooded out, so we were hours behind. Gilbert again, they're really, these are on iPhone photos. It rains or it's 100 degrees for us. Yeah. But you just have to go with it. And then our team, because honestly, we couldn't do it without our team. And we hire people who aren't necessarily photography people, but they're the best at what they do. They're production managers, stage managers, electricians, and they do everything. And it's really important to surround yourselves with people who are better than you are and who are good at what they do. So let's leave it at that. Q&A.
So you guys, we have time for a short Q&A. I'll pass around the mic. It won't make your voice louder, but it helps us with the video, so please speak into it.
Very good.
Are we thorough?
Hi, how can we as photographers submit our work for either the fence or for Photoville? When?
All right. Well, for both of them, there's actually a call for submissions. The fence itself, the call for submissions for this year is coming up in a couple of weeks, and then Photoville follows probably around the spring. So usually on our website, we'll have a post saying there's a call for submissions, guidelines.
Yeah, for the first 2 years of Photoville, we didn't do, it was just us and our partnerships. And last year, we decided to open it up. So we had maybe 30 plus applications. So we chose a few from that. This year, we thought, let's do it again. And we had over 300. And we were ambitious and we thought, oh yeah, we can reply to everyone. So basically, it's a free application form for Photoville. So we look at every one of them and we take every one of them seriously. And we probably, out of 300, chose roughly 8 of the exhibitions who actually submitted proposals.
This is done digitally?
Yes. So it's an online form. And, it's definitely something that we ask everyone to do. And even our existing partners, we ask them to fill out the same form, purely because when you're doing over 70 exhibitions, it's good to have everything in one spot.
I have a question for you guys. I'm curious. The city is your stage, and you've referred back to the idea of community many times in your presentation. Do you have a way of evaluating the impact on your audience? How do you gauge the response of the community and turn that into more endorsements or better fundraising?
I think it's from feedback we get via emails, which is definitely, we get a lot of emails from people seeing it. We get a lot of people who aren't necessarily from New York who want to see the kind of work, especially the fence and also Photoville. And the reason why we can't do Photoville anywhere else, it's a lot of work. But we will do the fence in other places. So again, emails, but also press. I think the press sometimes have, their finger on the pulse. So things that are going to be popular, we'll get a lot of press for. And so that's when we know that's definitely something. And also it's by when we're installing. So like when Dave said, for us, it's when the construction workers love it. When we took down geolocation, the DOT workers, the guys who work on the Brooklyn Bridge, were really upset. The Manhattan Bridge workers, for them to like go to the trouble to print their own thing, that's when we know, all right, that hit a chord in some way. And, it helps that we have really great partners who also help. And that's also how we're able to do a lot of other things in different cities, is because we have really great partners in those cities. We couldn't do it in Boston without Flash Forward. And the same thing with the Beltline without Atlanta Celebrates Photography. So you need good partners.
And also, you can, it's the same thing of like, we can track the number of people that are coming to Photoville. We know how many people are coming, so we can turn that into a number that we can talk to when we're making presentations, when we're looking for more marketing, that kind of thing. But it's also like as simple as like Sam and I will be in the office and I'll say, hey, what about this guy for the East River Ferry? So I'll pick up the phone and I'll call this guy, and he's like Chris Burkhart is a beautiful example, one of the top surf photographers in the world. And basically, I either call him or send an email and say, listen, we want to do this thing on the East River Ferry. There's not very much money, probably enough to maybe pay for a couple of drinks for you and your buddies for one night out. That's it. And people are going, yeah, man, what do I do? What do you want me to do? And that's what's really been great. That's how we know how it's getting out there around the country and around the world, too.
Yeah. We also had a local construction company, development company, who approached us, who wanted to put photos on the outside of their building on the construction fence, and we basically chose 4 photographers, 3 of them from the fence we met who had submitted work for the fence and last year's fence, and they got paid a lot of money, which was really nice. So it's things like that when we go, all right, these people are just walking by the fence going, how can I put this on my commercial property? We've also been asked to actually curate work inside lobbies of businesses. So again, it's just trying to find those opportunities, and a lot of the times they come to us. We don't go to buildings and say, let's put this work in your lobby.
Do you find that your example, you described several high-profile collaborations internationally and nationally. Do you find that your example has also inspired other people to put up similar-minded, public exhibitions?
I think there's definitely been an increase both in fence style projects, definitely in container projects, a lot of festivals. But I always like to say you can't copyright an idea you honestly don't want to. It's like, in many ways, what we're doing is very open source. It's like we're doing something that, because we think it's a way of revolutionizing, of just broadening the base. Like to open a gallery in Chelsea or in London, or it's almost an insane proposition to do this. It's an insane proposition in a different way. But it sort of levels the playing field. You may not be able to go ahead and do 100 containers on the first time, or you might not want to. But to say, you know what, I can reach an audience without having to spend $50,000 a month on rent, and therefore, by that choice, change the audience. So the people who are going to come to your gallery, given the price you're going to have to charge, given the rent you're paying, are a tiny subset. So the fact that you can change that, you can say, well, if I can drop all that, suddenly I have the luxury of attracting a very different audience. And we are definitely seeing people get inspired by that. And a lot of times they email us and say, we love what you're doing, we'd like to do it too, or will you work with us to do it? So.
And I think a lot of people underestimate how much work it does take to do this and how expensive it is. Insurance, liability insurance is huge. Your permits, just emergency exits. I can't even begin to tell you how expensive it is to do emergency exit lights and make them work on a public space. And people have no idea. And so when we've had a lot of people who have approached us who want to do something exactly like this, and there's a reason why this has not been done yet on a big scale anywhere else, because they get to a point where they go, oh, it's actually really expensive. And because of both Dave and our experiences in working in theatre and live events and festivals, we have contacts in the theatre world in New York City, so we can pick up the phone and ask for a favor. And so that's kind of how we make this happen. Trust me.
I have a question. The question I would like to ask you is that why did you choose Brooklyn? I don't know if I missed something, but why did you choose Brooklyn?
It's our backyard. No. Well, it is. We're based in Dumbo, Brooklyn Bridge Park. We were given an opportunity. This was, the president of the park saying, I liked what you did at the Dumbo Arts Festival. Here's a small space. So again, I said we were only going to do 10 or 12 containers. Then they gave us a lot more space. And I think, when is a public park like this in New York City on the waterfront ever going to give you this opportunity? We had no money. You know this. We had no money. But we thought this is only going to be offered to us once. And if we said, no, let's do it next year, it would not have happened. It just wouldn't have, because they would have developed it and we wouldn't have had this track record. So that's the reason why it's in Brooklyn Bridge Park. And look, we've looked, this is a developing park. We're never taking it for granted. So we've looked in other areas. So it could go to Queens next year, or it could be in Manhattan or Staten Island, who knows? But we kind of consider ourselves a traveling circus, and that's the beauty of a shipping container. You can take it anywhere. It's still the same thing.
Well, I also have a comment. I've been volunteering for the past 4 years, and I enjoy it. I wouldn't miss it for anything. And I grew up around here, and my first job was back here working for DeGaulle, and that's on 20th Street. And I grew up in Brooklyn, and what you guys have done, I enjoyed. I came all the way from Long Island, and I will go wherever you go.
Thank you. Thank you. No, you've been amazing. I mean, our volunteers are awesome. We have a really, really good time with our volunteers and our team. And it's, we have people, you're interested in photography, but we have a lot of, volunteers who have they don't come from a photography background. They just really enjoy it. We have a lot of locals. And it's a lot of fun. It's our favorite thing. Believe me, we don't get paid to do it. We get to do this, actually, stand on shipping containers and look at the sunset. So that's pretty cool. We get up there.
So on that note, thank you for that wonderful comment. We will also follow you wherever you go, and thank you for the inspiration, a lesson in humility and hard work and vision. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And I think Dave can talk about our first ever exhibition or exhibitions.
I think the key moment was we were you can't see it, it's around the back of this wall on the right. That's where our little office started, and Sam and I were in there most of the time. And I turned to Sam and I just said, we're really in trouble now. And he said, why? I go, we have a space that we're going to have to do shows. So what are we going to do? Who are we going to show? So, as great inspirations happen, I was taking a shower and had some time, and I was like, yeah, what about 7 shows in 7 days? Has anybody done that? Let's do that. Let's have an open call throughout the world, pick 7 people and do a show, put a show up, have an opening, take the show down that night, put the putty on the wall, spackle, show up in the morning, sand, paint, put the next show up, have another opening. And we thought, and we had some, who do we have locally? We had like one person locally. Mm-hmm. But we had people from around the world, and then like on Wednesday night we had a young lady from Russia who had sent photos in that we picked of, she was photographing gravestones in Moscow, and where they always have people's personal photos on there. So we showed that exhibition, and it was like a rainy night, and we're like, no one's coming to see these, no one knows this photographer, no one's going to come see gravestones with these photos at nighttime, so let's just serve vodka like it's a real Chekhov night. And like 60, 70 people just showed up that night. So we had a party. I thought we were onto something.
It was a horrible install the next morning. And one of the great reasons for us to do this was usually when people do openings, it's one night, you get a whole bunch of people, and then for the next month, and to be totally honest, the next month when you do a gallery show, you get a little foot traffic, right? So for 7 days, we had, the 60, 70 people were probably the slower night. We had a few hundred, definitely on our first night. And so for 7 nights, we constantly had people coming through, and it was a lot of different people. We only had one person who came every night. He really enjoyed the drinking, I think. But we had a really great time. This is Bob Miller. He actually just had a newborn like 3 weeks before, and that's the baby. But, it was a really great way for us to do that. And for 3.5 years, we installed shows, and it was basically on a monthly basis. And we've gotten great press, and it was a really great way to be a theatre and music and event producer. I have no background in photography, but I feel, and we all feel, that at the end of the day, photography, theatre, music, visual arts, whatever that is, you're telling a story. And so if you're a producer like myself, it doesn't matter what that is, I'm going to produce your story. So I met these guys while I was at St. Anne's. I was holding Lou Reed's hand while he was curating in the gallery, in the warehouse while these guys were producing it. And then when I left St. Anne's, I was the senior producer for Creative Time, so I was producing large-scale public art projects. And then I left Creative Time because I had a great opportunity to produce a big psycho opera with the Creators Project and Vice with Karen O and the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, which we toured. Which was a big-scale music project, and a behind-the-scenes film with Lance Bangs and Spike Jonze. And then I also produce with Dave as well with the World Science Festival. I've been doing that for the last few years, and produce a lot of other projects. And just so you guys know that the three of us, United Photo Industries and Photoville, do not pay the bills. So we produce and work other jobs. So like I said, World Science Festival, I produced a fashion show with Spike Jonze last year. So that's what pays the bills and the rent. So I can keep doing this and what I love.
I just added up on a piece of paper yesterday. I did 37 different outside paying jobs to stay alive this year.
So there you go. So by doing all of this, we get to do what we love. So basically, back in 2011, when the guys decided they wanted to start United Photo Industries, it was kind of accidental that we kind of fell into a few things. But Sam and Dave had an idea which kind of started with the Dumbo Arts Festival and shipping containers. So maybe Sam can talk a bit about that.
So every year, the Dumbo Arts Festival was a street art festival open to all disciplines. It was running for about 15 years before its untimely demise a couple of years ago. It's a changing world. But at the time, they had an open call and said, we're accepting submissions.
Hello and welcome to the I3 lecture series hosted by the Masters in Digital Photography program at the School of Visual Arts. This talk brings to a close our fall lecture series, and we are thrilled to have not one but 3 speakers with us tonight. We have Sam Barzilay, Roumanos and Dave Shelley. Together they launched United Photo Industries in 2011. UPI brings the photographic community together by presenting photography, installations, and events in unique locations off the beaten path, where the focus lies in content and is accessible to everyday people from all walks of life. They also present a compelling exhibition program at their gallery, brand new gallery headquarters in Dumbo, Brooklyn. Currently on view is Nadine Bouton's American Home. In a few short years, UPI has managed to create what is possibly the most exciting and eagerly awaited photo event of the year, the Photoville Festival. So please help me give a warm welcome to Sam, Laura, and Dave.
Thank you. I'm just a common boy from Detroit. Sam's just a common man from Greece. And Laura's an extraordinary person from Australia, who is the glue of United Photo Industries. I think we should just talk about how we got started first, possibly. Here's our mission statement. You're going to talk about that, Laura?
Well, actually, it was just beautifully and eloquently stated. Basically, our mission is to bring, I don't have to repeat this because it's right up there, but at the end of the day, we want to make it incredibly democratic, and also we want to be inclusive, not exclusive. So a lot of the things that we do, a lot of our exhibitions, our projects, our events, is bringing a very diverse diverse artists, organizations, and companies together. I mean, we've only been around for 4 years, but we've actually exhibited over 1,200 artists, physically. Actually giving 1,200 artists exhibitions, whether it's on photo fences, part of our gallery show, festivals around the world, or Photoville. So that is kind of what we do. So let's talk about us. So basically our motto is work hard and be nice to people, because quite frankly, we're not doing this for the money or the glory. We actually really love what we do and we enjoy what we do, and we have a very diverse background. So I think Sam should talk first about what he does and who he is.
All right. So my name is Sam Barzilay. I moved to New York 8 years ago in what was supposed to be 3 months, but life happened. I grew up in Greece. I came to Boston to study, went back to Greece, realized that was a very bad idea. For any number of reasons. Went to London for my master's, where I realized that as much as I loved photography, I was on the wrong side of the camera. I enjoyed taking photos, and I was good at taking photos, but I was exceptional, in my humble opinion, in editing. So I decided to join the dark side and sort of transitioned into the backside. And so I moved to New York via Paris to work at the New York Photo Festival, where I met this gentleman here, where we stayed for 4 years. Anyway, that was 2007 to 2011 when UPI was born. We'll get to that. So, all right.
I have the best background for working photography. I'm a physical education major, so it really cross-references very well. But at one point, I was a sports photographer and a sports reporter, so I think possibly that, with the love of movies, made me excited about photography. And I moved to New York a long time ago, in '86, and most of my adult life I've made it as an actor, and then segueing into acting and production work. And somehow I thought in 2009 that I could afford 2005, I thought I could afford an apartment in Dumbo, which I could for a couple of years. And then I walked in one day and met Sam, and we worked on this New York Photo Festival for 4 years. And then I think towards the end of it, we were both coming to realize that the way the New York Photo Festival was set up was that we always picked, 4 curators? Mm-hmm. 4 curators, and then that was their vision of who they wanted to show. And then by being on the scene, Sam and I were constantly meeting people whose work we loved, and we wanted to find a way to get their work out there. So we finally said, we got to start figuring out how to do this a little bit on our own.
And that's where I come in. So when I met these guys back in 2008, which was the first Photo Festival, New York Photo Festival, I was actually the general manager of St. Anne's Warehouse, which is a theater and music venue out in Dumbo. I'm actually
a street closure, tell us what you can do. So I've been kind of itching to use shipping containers because Dumbo is on the old Brooklyn Harbor. I wanted to use shipping containers in a more creative way. I'd seen how in Germany they're building, whole structures, skyscrapers, and thought, well, what if we could build them and put photos in them, and they create little small mobile inexpensive galleries and see if the world will come to it. So piggybacking on the Dumbo Arts Festival and its 200,000 visitors over one weekend, we effectively did an open call, got 3 artists, and also set up a camera obscura as one of the containers, and you can kind of see it. The line to stand 3 minutes in the camera obscura was 45 minutes long, and it ran for 3 days straight. You had to wait 45 minutes, and people patiently and happily waited and got out, and then went back to the line and did it again. So it was great, and that's kind of how we knew we had something, we had an idea. So.
And because of that, Regina Meyer, who is the president of Brooklyn Bridge Park, 5 years ago, Brooklyn Bridge Park was nothing. They were just opening Pier 1, but everything else was just completely not accessible to anybody. So Regina was really, really excited. She loved the camera obscura, that she was one of those people who actually waited for 45 minutes. And she goes, I want you to do this in the park. And at the time, Sam and Dave were still technically, potentially working at the photo festival. But again, this opportunity to do something in Brooklyn Bridge Park, in containers, was something that we couldn't, give up. And we did it for 3 years until it actually stopped, the Dumbo Arts Festival. So we had a lot of fun with that. And then basically, while that was happening, we got offered a once-in-a-lifetime space. We needed an office space. And at Two Trees, who there are developers and a management company in Dumbo and across New York City, not only offered us an office space, but they offered us an empty gallery, which had been empty for 2 years, and they couldn't fill it. So it was only supposed to be temporary. We're thinking maybe 3 months until we could find an actual office space. So they gave us 111 Front Street, Suite 204 in Dumbo.